My name is Julianne Foster, 32 years old, sales director at a tech company in Denver. Every Sunday I drive 40 minutes up the highway to Boulder for dinner at my parents' house, even though the ritual feels less like a family gathering and more like walking onto a stage where I never get top billing. If you've ever felt like the invisible daughter, the one who works until midnight while your sibling is celebrated for simply showing up, then you'll understand my story. And before I take you into tonight's dinner, let me pause to ask, if these kinds of family betrayals hit close to home, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it with someone who knows exactly how it feels to be overlooked. The smell of pot roast greets me as soon as I push open the heavy oak door. My mother, Helen, is in her element, gliding around the dining room with a pitcher of water in hand, topping off glasses before anyone even realizes they're low. The chandelier above scatters light across the polished table set with her heirloom china, each plate positioned as if we were expecting royalty. Dad, Gregory, sits at the head, already in his pressed shirt, watch glinting as he checks the time again. "She should be here by now," he mutters, the words clipped. I know exactly who he means. My younger sister, Sophie, the one who always runs late, yet never seems to face consequences. Mother forces a smile, her eyes darting to me as if I might defend Sophie's tardiness. "You know your sister," she says softly. "She keeps her own schedule." I press my lips together, unwilling to rise to the bait. There was a time when I used to fill the silence with reassurance to smooth over the edges. Not tonight. I settle into my chair, folding my napkin across my lap, letting the ticking of the old grandfather clock fill the room. Each beat feels like a countdown to Sophie's dramatic entrance. My hands curl against the fabric of my skirt, nails leaving tiny crescents in the material. I want to believe these dinners could change, that one day I'll sit here and feel seen. But as the silence stretches, broken only by the clink of silverware against porcelain, I already sense what's coming. And then the front door slams open, heels clicking across the hardwood. The door bangs shut against the frame, jolting me upright. Heels strike the hardwood in an unapologetic rhythm. Click, 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 announcing Sophie before her voice does. "There you are," Dad exhales, his hand tightening around the stem of his wine glass. Relief softens his face, almost pride, as if being late was still an achievement. Sophie breezes in with the practiced glow of someone who knows she'll be forgiven no matter what. Her hair is artfully tousled, her coat half slipped from one shoulder, and her laugh, loud, carefree, fills the dining room like she owns the air we breathe. "Sorry I kept everyone waiting," she sings, tossing her purse onto the sideboard. The bag narrowly misses one of Mom's crystal bowls, wobbling until Mom steadies it with trembling fingers. I don't laugh. I don't even smile. Because dangling from Sophie's hand is something that makes my stomach tighten. A key ring with a cobalt leather tag. Mine. My car keys. She doesn't notice the way my gaze snags on them. Instead, she flops into the chair beside me, perfume trailing like a flag of victory. Traffic was brutal on Pearl Street, but you wouldn't believe who I ran into. My old professor from CU said he'd put in a good word for me. She grins, as if the universe itself is her personal matchmaker. Mom beams, already ladling pot roast onto Sophie's plate. "See? Good things come to those who wait." I keep my voice steady, though my throat feels tight. "Looks like you made it just fine." My eyes flick to the keys resting beside her water glass. "Did you drive here?" Sophie waves a manicured hand as if brushing away an irrelevant detail. "Of course. That interview in Denver couldn't exactly show up on the bus." The words hang heavy. Denver, my car. She doesn't even ask. Dad leans forward, warmth blooming in his tone. "Did it go well?" Sophie shrugs, confidence radiating. "Manager said I had excellent qualifications. I think it's in the bag." Mom claps her hands lightly, as though Sophie had just announced a Nobel Prize. I force myself to set my fork down, careful not to let the silver tremble against porcelain. Inside, the questions sharpen like glass. The clink of Sophie's fork against her plate jolts me back, but my eyes never leave the keys glinting by her glass. Every nerve in my body hums, a quiet alarm no one else seems to hear. I clear my throat, the sound sharper than I intend. "So, just to be clear, you drove my car to that interview?" Sophie glances up mid-bite, lips curling into a dismissive smile. "Relax, Jules. It was sitting in your garage anyway. What's the big deal?" The words lodge in my chest. My car isn't just metal and paint. It's the proof I've built a life on my own terms. "That's not an answer," I press, voice low but steady. Dad straightens in his chair, tone clipped, carrying the authority that once made me shrink. "Family helps family, Julianne. Sophie needed reliable transportation. You of all people should understand." Understand? That's rich. I picture myself last winter, hunched over spreadsheets until midnight, eyes burning from hours of revisions. No one offered me reliable transportation then. "I would have lent it if you'd asked," I say, my hands flat on the table to keep from shaking. Mom sets down the serving spoon, her smile stretched too tight. "Honestly, darling, it's not as if you were using it today. Don't be selfish." Selfish. The word slices deeper than it should, because it's been their favorite label for me whenever I dared to want something for myself. Sophie sighs dramatically, twirling the keys around her finger before tossing them back onto the table with a clatter. "You're making a scene over nothing. I got the job lead, didn't I?" The casual flick of her wrist ignites something inside me, a slow burn I've swallowed for years. I lean forward, meeting her eyes, refusing to blink first. "You don't get to take what isn't yours and call it nothing." For a second, silence falls. Even the grandfather clock seems to hold its breath. Dad's jaw tightens. Mom busies herself refilling glasses that are already full, and Sophie just smirks, confident as always that the world bends her way. But this time, I know something has shifted. The quiet fury simmering in me isn't going back to sleep. Sophie's smirk lingers in my mind, but my gaze drifts to the keys on the table. That cobalt tag is more than leather. It's the symbol of the one thing I claimed entirely for myself. And just like that, the dining room fades, pulling me back to a day I'll never forget. It was a Friday in late March, the kind where Colorado skies can't decide between snow or sunshine. I'd spent the past 18 months building the Miller proposal, pouring every ounce of energy into late nights, client calls, and endless revisions. By the time we closed the deal, the contract inked at $3.5 million, my body was running on caffeine and stubborn pride. I remember walking out of the boardroom, my blazer clinging to me with the scent of adrenaline and sweat, and thinking, this is it. This is the moment nobody can take from me. My colleagues cheered, but all I felt was quiet relief and a need to mark the victory in a way that was undeniably mine. The next morning, I drove straight to a dealership in Denver. I didn't bring a boyfriend for approval or my dad to co-sign papers. It was just me, my bonus check, and a salesman who raised his eyebrows when I asked to see the midnight blue sedan. Under the fluorescent lights, the car looked almost black, sleek lines catching the reflection of the showroom floor. When the salesman opened the door, the scent of new leather hit me, rich and intoxicating. I slid into the driver's seat, ran my fingers over the steering wheel, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was sitting inside my own success. "Would you like to call someone?" the salesman asked, pen poised over the paperwork. "No," I told him, my voice steadier than I expected. "This one's mine." Signing the documents, I felt something shift inside me, like all those years of grinding without recognition had finally carved out a space I could claim. As I drove it off the lot, sunlight broke through the clouds, bouncing off the hood, and I swear the car gleamed like it had been waiting just for me. Later that night, I showed photos to Clara over drinks. She raised her glass and said, "Jules, you earned every inch of that leather." I believed her. For once, I didn't have to justify, apologize, or share the credit. That car was never just transportation. It was independence on four wheels. Proof that hard work and sacrifice could buy something tangible, something no one else could diminish. And now Sophie had dangled those same keys like they were nothing but a prop in her play. I blink, and the dining room snaps back into focus, the chandelier light, the pot roast cooling, Sophie laughing at some half-hearted joke. Fury coils tighter in my chest. She has no idea what she took from me. I grip my water glass tighter, trying to anchor myself in the clatter of silverware and polite conversation. Sophie is still talking about her amazing interview, Mom nodding like every word is gospel, Dad watching her as though she's the sun. My phone buzzes once against my leg, then again, and again. At first, I think it's work, maybe a client, or Clara checking in. But when I slide the phone out under the tablecloth, my chest tightens. 6 notifications, all from colleagues. Each message some variation of the same theme. Congrats on the new car. Looks beautiful. Wow, your parents are generous. When did you get the upgrade? My thumb hovers, heart pounding. I click the link in one of the texts, and there it is, glowing on my screen like a slap across the face. Sophie, posed next to my midnight blue sedan, one manicured hand spread across the hood like she's claiming it. The caption reads, "Thanks Mom and Dad for the incredible gift. Feeling so blessed with this new car and all the family support. New Wheels had grateful." 23 likes, 4 comments from mutual friends, posted 2 hours ago. The room tilts. I hear Mom asking if anyone wants more potatoes, Dad chuckling at something Sophie just said, but it all sounds muffled, like I'm underwater. I set my phone on this table, screen up. The image glows against the white tablecloth, impossible to ignore. Mom's smile falters first, then Dad's eyes narrow. Sophie glances down, and for the briefest second, guilt flickers before she pastes on that practiced grin. "You didn't think to mention this?" My voice is steady, though my pulse roars in my ears. Sophie shrugs, pushing a carrot around her plate. "It's just Instagram. Everyone posts stuff like that." "It's not just a post," I counter, my tone sharpening. "You told the world that they bought the car. That car." I jab my finger toward the keys still lying by her glass. "The one you borrowed without permission." Dad waves a dismissive hand. "Addie, don't be so sensitive. It's social media. She just wanted to feel good about herself, like her successful big sister." Mom dabs her napkin at the corner of her mouth. "Is that so terrible?" I look from one face to another, heat building behind my ribs. Sophie's smirk makes my skin burn. She doesn't even bother to defend herself. She doesn't need to. They're already doing it for her. Something shifts in me then, not just anger, but resolve. I know this isn't about a post. It's about years of letting them write my story for me. And tonight, I feel the first stirrings of a new ending. The glow from Sophie's Instagram post still lingers on the table between us when she leans back in her chair, as if nothing at all has happened. She spears a green bean, chews with exaggerated calm, and then, without even glancing my way, drops her next bomb. "So, Jules," she says casually, "I've been meaning to ask, could I borrow the car again this weekend? There's a networking mixer up in Fort Collins. Big opportunity. I need to make a good impression." My pulse stutters. The audacity takes my breath away. Before I can speak, Mom perks up, eager to support. "That sounds promising, sweetheart. Good contacts are everything when you're just starting out." Dad nods in agreement, leaning forward with his elbows on the table. "It's practical, Julianne. You work from home half the week. The car just sits there." Their words thud against me like stones. Just sits there. As if all the nights I poured into earning that car meant nothing more than a shiny toy gathering dust. I set my napkin down carefully, keeping my tone clipped but even. "No." The single word cracks through the air like glass. Forks pause mid-air. Even the clock seems to hesitate. Sophie blinks, caught off guard, then lets out a mocking laugh. "Don't be dramatic. It's not like I'm asking for a kidney, just a ride on wheels you hardly touch." "It's not yours to take," I say, voice firmer now. My hands tighten in my lap. "You already crossed that line once. I won't let it happen again." Mom's brow creases, her voice turning sharp. "Addie, don't be selfish. Your sister is trying to build her future." And there it is. That word again. Selfish. Twisted to mean any boundary I dare to draw. I meet Sophie's eyes across the table. For the first time, I let her see the steel under my skin. I said no, and I mean it. The silence that follows is heavier than the chandelier overhead. For years, I've played the role of the accommodating older sister, but tonight, something new takes root. The word no still reverberates in the silence when Sophie breaks it with a huff, stabbing another carrot. Anyway, it's not like I hurt your precious toy, just a tiny scratch, barely noticeable. My head snaps toward her. What scratch? She blinks too quickly. Relax. Some idiot nicked the door in a parking lot, nothing serious. The calm mask I've forced all evening splinters. I push back my chair, the legs screeching against hardwood. Show me. Her smirk falters. What? On the car. The scratch you just admitted to. We're going outside. Now. Dad groans, pinching the bridge of his nose. Julianne, this is unnecessary. We're eating. But I'm already standing, pulse hammering. Sophie drags herself up with theatrical reluctance, muttering under her breath. Mom's eyes flick nervously toward her china cabinet, as if the confrontation itself might break the glass. We step out into the crisp Boulder night. The air carries the faint scent of pine and distant chimneys, but all I can smell is fury. The sedan gleams beneath the porch light, every curve familiar, beloved. And then I see it. Not a nick, not even close. A scar runs nearly a foot across the passenger side, deep enough to reveal metal beneath the paint. Traces of red mark the edges like dried blood. I know that shade. It belongs to the fire hydrants on Pearl Street. My stomach knots. This wasn't a parking lot. You sideswiped a hydrant. Sophie crosses her arms, her voice defensive, brittle. Does it matter? Insurance will cover it. My insurance, I snap. Which means my premiums, my record, my responsibility. For the first time tonight, she looks away, eyes darting toward the house where our parents linger behind lace curtains. It's not that bad. You're overreacting. I run my hand gently over the scrape, fingertips catching on the jagged edge. The car that once gleamed with pride now wears her carelessness like a wound. The burn in my chest deepens, not just anger, but grief, for every time I've worked myself raw only to watch her take and take. The porch light flickers, casting us both in harsh shadow. Sophie shifts uncomfortably, then tries for a laugh. Come on, Jules, you act like the world is ending. It's just a car. But to me, it isn't just a car. It's every sacrifice I made, every night I stayed late, every dream I funded alone. And now it's scarred by someone who never asked, never respected, never cared. I straighten, voice steady but cold. You have no idea what you've damaged. The scrape on the car gleams under the porch light, ugly and raw. But it's not just the metal that feels scarred. It's me. Standing there, staring at the damage, I feel another wound rip open, one that's been festering for decades. Because this isn't new. This is the pattern. My mind drags me backward, no permission asked. I'm 17 again, holding the thin envelope from Stanford in both hands, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break through my chest. A full academic scholarship. I remember rushing into the kitchen, paper trembling, ready to finally make them proud. Mom, Dad, But Mom barely looked up from tying ribbons on the pink balloons for Sophie's Sweet 16. That's wonderful, honey. Can you finish hanging these streamers? Guests are coming in an hour. And then Dad rolled into the driveway, beaming, keys dangling from his hand. A shiny red Volkswagen sat at the curb. Happy birthday, Princess! Sophie squealed, throwing herself into his arms, while I taped decorations for a party I wasn't invited to join. The memory cuts deep, but another rises before I can shake it. College years. While Sophie bounced from one university to another, 3 schools in 3 years, all fully funded, Mom's voice was always gentle when Sophie dropped out of yet another program. College isn't for everyone, sweetheart. You'll find your path. Meanwhile, I worked mornings at the campus bookstore and nights waiting tables, chipping away at bills they contributed to with a grand total of $600 a semester. Enough for books, they said proudly, as though it erased the hours I stumbled home too exhausted to study. And then there were the little things. Death by 1,000 cuts. sweaters that vanished from my closet, earrings borrowed and never returned. The spare key to my first apartment mysteriously missing after Sophie dropped by to see the place. Each theft waved away with a laugh. "She's your sister, Jules. Don't be so uptight." Even now, the words echo, pressing against my ribs. Back on the porch, Sophie shifts uncomfortably, sensing my silence stretching into something sharper. "You're staring like it's the end of the world," she mutters. Maybe it is. Or maybe it's the beginning of me finally calling it what it is. Theft, dressed up as family love. I glance at the gouge in the paint, then at her. "Do you even realize how long this has been going on?" Her brows knit. "What are you talking about?" "You've been taking pieces of me my whole life. My clothes, my time, my achievements, and now this car. And every single time, Mom and Dad tell me to stop being selfish, stop keeping score." My voice cracks, but I don't let it falter. "Well, I have been keeping score, and I'm tired of losing." Through the window, I catch a glimpse of Mom clearing dishes, Dad leaning back in his chair, both pretending not to watch. That, too, is part of the pattern. Sophie missteps, and they look away. But I can't look away anymore. I rest my hand on the scrape one last time, feeling the cold edge bite into my palm. The car wears my story now, hard-earned, unappreciated, scarred, and for the first time, I'm ready to write the next chapter on my terms. When we return inside, the warmth of the dining room feels suffocating. The chandelier throws its glow across porcelain plates and crystal glasses as if nothing outside had shattered. Mom busies herself with dessert, Dad folds his napkin with practiced composure, and Sophie slips back into her chair, pretending the porch confrontation never happened. But I can't sit quietly anymore. I slide into my seat, spine straight, palms flat against the table. My voice cuts through the soft clink of silverware. "We need to talk." Dad looks up, irritation flickering in his eyes. "Julianne, must we do this now?" "Yes, now." My chest tightens, but I force myself to continue. "That car out there, it's not just transportation. It's the first thing I've ever owned that I earned completely on my own. Every hour I stayed late, every weekend I sacrificed. It all led to that moment. And Sophie took it without asking, then lied to the world about who paid for it." Mom's lips pinch into a thin line. "Darling, don't blow this out of proportion. She only wanted to celebrate." "Celebrate?" My laugh comes sharp, humorless. "By pretending you bought it for her? Do you know how many colleagues messaged me tonight, congratulating me on my parents' generosity? Do you realize how humiliating it is to have 18 months of sweat erased by a hashtag?" Sophie rolls her eyes, twirling a strand of hair. "You're being dramatic. It was just a post." I turn to her, heat rising in my throat. "No, Sophie. It was theft. Of my car, my story, my work. You didn't just borrow keys. You borrowed the symbol of everything I've fought for." The silence that follows is heavy, the kind that makes every tick of the grandfather clock sound like a drumbeat. Dad clears his throat, voice measured. "Family helps family. That's how we've always done things." I meet his gaze, steady now. "No. That's how you've always done things. Me giving, Sophie taking, and you both calling it love. But love respects boundaries, and for once I'm setting mine." The words hang in the air, sharper than crystal, heavier than lead. For the first time in years I feel taller than the room, as if I finally belong at this table, not as the forgotten daughter, but as someone who will no longer be dismissed. The silence after my declaration throbs in my ears. No one moves, not even Sophie, whose smirk has slipped into something brittle. Dad is the first to break, his voice sharp, cutting through the stillness. "Sit down, Julianne." "We're not finished." I'm already standing, the chair legs scraping the floor in protest. "Actually," I say, my fingers curling around the back of the chair, "we are." Dad's jaw tightens. "Don't walk away from this table like a child." "I'm not the child here," I answer, meeting his stare without flinching. "I'm the only one who's been treated like an adult since I was 17. Mom's eyes glisten, her voice trembling with rehearsed disappointment. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By storming off? A bitter laugh escapes me. Everything you've done? You gave me $600 a semester for books. The rest I earned with late shifts and double majors. Don't rewrite history just because it's easier than facing the truth. Sophie leans back in her chair, arms crossed, but I catch the flicker of unease in her eyes. You're so dramatic, she mutters. No wonder you're always tense. Something in me steadies. I grab my purse from the sideboard, sliding the strap over my shoulder. My voice is calm now, calmer than I feel. I'm not storming off. I'm choosing to leave, because staying here, pretending this is normal, pretending this is love. I shake my head. That's the real performance. Dad rises halfway from his chair, hand flat on the table. And what exactly are you going to do? Call the police on your own sister? I pause at the doorway, looking back at the three of them. My parents rigid with denial, my sister wrapped in entitlement. My pulse is steady, my resolve sharper than it's ever been. No, I tell him quietly. I'm going to do something far more effective. And with that, I step out, closing the door behind me. The soft click feels like a period at the end of a sentence I've been writing my whole life. The drive back to Denver is a blur of headlights and radio static. By the time I pull into the garage beneath my apartment building, the clock on the dashboard reads close to midnight. The silence that greets me upstairs feels both heavy and liberating. No sharp looks, no cutting words, no one telling me I'm selfish for wanting what's mine. I kick off my heels, drop my purse onto the couch, and pace. 8 steps from the kitchen to the window, 8 steps back again. My apartment is small but immaculate, every book lined on its shelf, every file stacked by color. Order is the one thing I control. Through the glass, 12 floors below, my midnight blue sedan waits under the street lamp. Even from here, I can see the scrape glinting faintly against the paint, a wound mocking me in the dark. Sophie's laugh still echoes in my ears, and with it, Mom's dismissive smile, Dad's commanding tone. I press my forehead against the cool window pane. This isn't just about a car. It's about how easily they take what I've built, rewrite the story, and expect me to applaud. My phone buzzes on the counter. A message from Clara. How bad was it tonight? I type, then erase, then type again. Bad enough. I need a solution they can't touch. I set the phone down and stare at the city lights bleeding across the horizon. That's when it hits me. Maybe the answer isn't convincing them to respect my boundaries. Maybe it's removing their ability to cross them in the first place. I think of the Miller contract, of the way the CFO's eyes lit up when I presented the numbers, of how every client perk is measured in spreadsheets and percentages. If I framed the car not as personal property but as a business asset, professional, untouchable, it would finally be beyond Sophie's reach, beyond their reach. The idea blooms slowly, then floods me with clarity. I don't need their permission. I don't even need their approval. What I need is leverage. I straighten, the coil of rage settling into something colder, sharper. A plan. Tomorrow I'll walk into the office not just as their daughter, not just as Sophie's sister, but as a woman who knows exactly how to protect what's hers. For the first time all night, I smile. By the time Monday morning arrives, I've sharpened my fury into strategy. The Denver skyline glitters outside my office tower, the glass walls catching the sunrise as I stride down the hallway with my briefcase in hand. My heels click against the polished floor, each step steady with a confidence I didn't have last night. Carl, my assistant, glances up from his desk. Morning, Julianne. You've got the budget review with CFO Reynolds at 10. Block out an extra 30 minutes, I tell him, sliding a folder onto his desk. I'm adding a proposal, and I need the numbers for mileage reimbursements last quarter, plus maintenance costs on the fleet cars. His eyebrows shoot up, but he nods. On it. By 10 sharp, I'm seated across from Howard Reynolds, the kind of man who values precision over charm. He adjusts his glasses as he flips through the budget documents, his office as immaculate as the man himself. Quarterly reports look solid, he says, scanning the top sheet. Your division is up 12%. Thank you, I reply, steady. But before we move on, I'd like to present a cost-saving initiative. His brow arches. Go on. I slide the second folder across his desk. Each page is carefully tabbed and highlighted. Hard data, not just ideas. Last year, the company spent an average of $1,245 a month on sales team reimbursements. Factor in fuel, maintenance, and inconsistent client impressions, and we're bleeding money. My proposal is straightforward. Designate a company-owned executive vehicle for client meetings and corporate events. Reynolds leans back, steepling his fingers. A dedicated car? Yes. One that projects stability, professionalism, and brand consistency. I flip to the final page. A photo of my midnight blue sedan, clean lines gleaming, a mock-up of the company logo subtly positioned on the doors. This vehicle already fits the profile. It's in excellent condition, recently purchased, and available immediately. I propose transferring ownership to Neurotech Solutions. In exchange, I'll handle all client-facing responsibilities with the car, while the company absorbs insurance and maintenance. The numbers show a 30% savings annually. For a long moment, Reynolds studies the photo. His eyes flick back to me, sharp but not unkind. You're suggesting we buy your car? Yes, I answer without hesitation. At fair market value, it's an asset that benefits the company and eliminates personal liability for me. A slow smile curves at the edges of his mouth. I wondered when you'd bring something like this to the table. Smart, very smart. Relief swells in my chest, though I keep my posture composed. Run the legal paperwork this week, he says, closing the folder with a decisive snap. If the numbers hold, I'll approve it. As I leave his office, the weight on my shoulders shifts. My car, my symbol, will soon be out of reach from Sophie, Mom, Dad. Protected, not by their approval, but by my own foresight. For the first time in days, I feel untouchable. Leaving Reynolds' office, I clutch the folder to my chest like armor. The hallway hums with the Monday rush, phones ringing, shoes tapping, conversations sparking. But for the first time in weeks, I don't feel like I'm drowning in the noise. David Kim, my direct supervisor, spots me near the elevators. He falls into step beside me, coffee in one hand, his usual measured calm in the other. I heard you went toe-to-toe with Reynolds this morning, he says with a grin. Not many people walk out of his office smiling. I match his pace. I presented a cost-saving measure. He approved the first step. David raises an eyebrow, impressed. That's not easy. What did you pitch? I hesitate, then decide honesty feels lighter than secrecy. Transferring my personal vehicle into the company fleet. It cuts reimbursement costs and creates a stronger client-facing image. Reynolds saw the value. For a moment, David studies me, his gaze sharp but not judgmental. Then he nods. Strategic and protective. His tone shifts lower, more personal. I saw Sophie's posts. I know it's not my business, but if this helps you draw a line, I'm glad you did it. Heat pricks the back of my neck, but not from embarrassment, from relief. Thank you, I murmur. I needed someone to say that. We reach my office, and David pauses in the doorway. Julianne, people notice more than you think. Not just your results, but the way you carry yourself when it matters. Don't underestimate how much respect you've earned. After he leaves, I sit at my desk, the city stretching wide beyond the glass. For years, home has been where my voice was drowned out. But here, among colleagues, deadlines, contracts, my voice lands. It shapes decisions, changes numbers on spreadsheets, moves the company forward. And now, for the first time, it's shaping my boundaries too. I lean back in my chair, exhaling slowly. Reynolds may have signed the paperwork, but it's the quiet nod from David that steadies me most. Because maybe, just maybe, I'm not fighting this battle alone anymore. By Wednesday afternoon, the plan I planted in Reynolds' office has sprouted into reality. The legal department calls me down to the basement garage, paperwork clipped neatly to a board, signatures waiting. Walter Jeffries, our company attorney, greets me by the elevator with a dry smile. Ready to sign your freedom away? I arch a brow. More like signing it into protection. We walk together toward the sedan. Freshly washed, it gleams beneath the fluorescent lights, the scratch buffed away by the company mechanic. A small magnetic decal, Neurotech Solutions, in understated silver, rests on both doors. Subtle, professional, and, most importantly, untouchable. Walter flips through the forms, his pen tapping against the clipboard. Insurance is transferred effective immediately. Maintenance costs fall under corporate budget. You'll have a reserved spot in the front row near the executive elevator. He glances up, studying my face. Once you sign, this car no longer belongs to you personally. You okay with that? I let my hand trail over the hood, the paint cool beneath my fingertips. For a moment, I remember the first time I touched this car, the smell of leather, the thrill of ownership. But I also remember Sophie's keys twirling in her hand, the scrape on the door, Mom's dismissive smile. Yes, I say firmly. I'm more than okay. The pen feels heavy but satisfying in my grip as I scrawl my name across the last page. My signature curves like a seal on a decision I should have made long ago. Walter gathers the papers, tucking them into his briefcase. Congratulations. It's official. Neurotech owns your car now. I exhale slowly, the tension in my shoulders easing, not ownership lost, ownership redefined. The vehicle hasn't been taken from me, it's been shielded, folded into something bigger than my family's reach. I step back, looking at it one last time as mine in the old sense. Then I smile, sharp and certain. Good. Let them try to touch it now. Walter chuckles, shaking his head as he locks his case. Remind me never to cross you, Julianne. I walk away from the garage lighter than I've felt in months, heels clicking against the concrete like punctuation marks. This isn't just about a car anymore. It's about reclaiming the narrative, and for once, I'm the one writing it. That evening, the scent of roasted garlic and basil fills my apartment before I even open the door. Clara stands there with 2 takeout bags dangling from her arms and a bottle of red tucked under one elbow. I figured this was a night worth celebrating, she says, grinning as she kicks off her boots and heads for the kitchen. Legal transfer signed, right? I can't help smiling. Signed, sealed, and official. Neurotech owns the car now. She sets the food on the counter, pulling out cartons of pasta and garlic bread still steaming. God, Jules, that's brilliant. You didn't just protect yourself. You outmaneuvered them. I grab 2 glasses and the corkscrew, handing one over once the wine flows dark and smooth. We clink them together, the sound ringing like a tiny victory bell. To corporate assets, Clara declares, eyes dancing, and to boundaries nobody can bulldoze. The first sip burns pleasantly, loosening the knot in my chest. You should have seen Sophie's face when I called her out about the scratch. She didn't even care. To her, it was just a car. I shake my head. They'll understand soon enough that it isn't theirs to touch anymore. Clara leans against the counter, studying me with that look only best friends have, the one that sees through bravado. You've been carrying this fight for years. Doesn't it feel lighter? I pause, really considering it. The weight hasn't vanished, but something inside me has shifted. It feels controlled, like I finally moved the chess piece they didn't expect. We dig into pasta, the tang of marinara bright against the wine. Laughter bubbles between us, easing the ache that's followed me for days. For the first time in so long, I taste victory not just in numbers or contracts, but in the air of my own home. Clara raises her glass again, softer this time. To you, Jules, for refusing to let them write your story anymore. I meet her gaze, warmth settling in my chest, to rewriting it myself. The following Sunday, I steer my old SUV up Highway 36, its worn leather seat molding around me like an old friend. The hum of the engine is louder than the sedan's sleek purr, but comforting in a way the other never was. Every mile closer to Boulder, the knot in my stomach tightens, but it's different this time. I'm not heading into battle unarmed. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across my parents' driveway as I pull in. The spot where my midnight blue sedan once gleamed is conspicuously empty, leaving only the cracked pavement and Sophie's little hatchback slouched beside it. I cut the engine and sit for a beat, letting the silence sink in. When I finally step out, the air smells of pot roast and freshly cut grass, familiar, unchanging, almost mocking in its predictability. The front door swings open before I reach it. Sophie stands in the entryway, arms folded, a hint of confusion in her voice. "Where's the blue car?" Behind her, Mom fiddles with the clasp of her pearl necklace, a nervous tic I've known since childhood. Dad lingers near the dining room, his jaw tight, his eyes calculating. The choreography is already in motion. "I drove the SUV today," I say, hanging my jacket neatly in the closet. My voice is calm, controlled, not the clipped defensiveness they expect. Sophie narrows her eyes, almost accusatory. "You didn't bring it?" "Not today," I reply, and move toward the dining room. The table is already set, crystal gleaming, pot roast steaming, as though the week before never happened. But everything has changed, at least for me. Sliding into my chair, I fold the napkin across my lap, savoring the serenity curling in my chest. For the first time in years, I feel in control at this table. They don't know yet, I think, glancing at the empty space outside the window, but soon they will. Dinner begins with an eerie politeness, the kind that feels rehearsed. Pot roast is passed around, Mom's hands steady even as her smile strains at the corners. For a few minutes, only the scrape of cutlery fills the room. Then Dad clears his throat, the signal I've been waiting for. "We've been thinking about your situation, Julianne," Mom begins, laying her napkin neatly across her lap. Her tone is warm, practiced. "Your sister really does need reliable transportation. The economy's brutal, and she's just trying to get her foot in the door." Sophie sets her fork down, her voice softening into vulnerability. "Every interview counts, Jules. First impressions matter, and I can't exactly show up in my beat-up hatchback. People judge." Dad leans forward, his corporate tone sliding into place like an old suit. "You work from home 3 days a week. The car sits unused. It makes sense for the family if you add Sophie to your insurance, just for when it's idle." Their words overlap, a seamless chorus honed over decades. Mom's gentle concern, Dad's logic framed as fact, Sophie's fragile plea. The same choreography I've danced to my whole life. I let them play it out, chewing slowly, the roast tender on my tongue. For once, I don't rush to defend myself. I simply watch, the way you'd watch actors repeating lines you've heard 100 times. Mom refills my water glass, though it's already full. "We know you want to help. It's not selfish to share. It's family." Sophie leans closer, eyes wide. "I'll be careful this time, I swear. That scratch wasn't even my fault." Dad sets down his fork with a deliberate clink. "It's a small ask, Julianne. The least you could do." The least I could do. The phrase lands heavy, the echo of every sacrifice they've demanded and called duty. I lay my utensils neatly across my plate, folding my napkin beside them. "You've clearly rehearsed this," I say quietly. Mom opens with concern, Dad closes with logic, Sophie sells vulnerability. Same script, different night. Their faces flicker, surprise, annoyance, a flash of guilt quickly buried. I take a sip of water, calm settling over me like armor. But this time, I'm not reciting my lines. The silence that follows is sharper than any argument. For the first time, they don't have a comeback ready. Their silence clings to the room like humidity, heavy and uncomfortable. Dad drums his fingers against the table. Mom twists her necklace. Sophie stares at me with barely contained irritation. I reach calmly into my purse, the rustle of paper slicing through the tension, and place a crisp folder in the center of the table. The Neurotech logo gleams in the corner of the documents. "What's this?" Dad asks, his tone clipped. "Proof," I say. My voice doesn't waver. "The car you keep calling ours is no longer mine to give, or yours to take. It belongs to my company now." Mom's hand flies to her mouth. "You sold your car?" No. I slide the top page toward them, tapping the signature line where my name sits beside the company seal. I transferred ownership. It's a corporate asset. Insurance, maintenance, repairs, it's all covered under Neurotech Solutions. I use it strictly for client meetings. Sophie snatches the paper, scanning it with disbelief. You can't be serious. You did this on purpose to spite me. Yes, I answer evenly. I did it on purpose, to protect what I earned. Her chair screeches back as she half stands, color rising in her cheeks. That's not fair. You knew I needed it for interviews. I lean forward, matching her glare. You don't get to call it unfair after stealing it, scratching it, and parading it online as if it was your gift from Mom and Dad. Actions have consequences, Sophie. Welcome to them. Dad's face reddens. Julianne, this is absurd. You've always been difficult, but this is beyond. Beyond what? I challenge, my voice calm but cutting. Beyond setting a boundary you can't bulldoze? Beyond making sure my work doesn't become your family's property? Mom's eyes glisten with tears, her voice soft but sharp. After all we've sacrificed, this is how you repay us? By turning your back on family? I almost laugh at the word sacrifice. Instead, I gather the papers neatly back into the folder. You call it turning my back. I call it reclaiming my life. Sophie slams her palms on the table. You've betrayed us. I meet her eyes, my voice steady as stone. No, Sophie, I stopped betraying myself. The grandfather clock ticks in the hall, the only sound in the stunned silence that follows. For the first time in this house, I feel taller than the chandelier overhead. My car isn't theirs anymore. My success isn't theirs to twist. And as I look at their stunned faces, I realize they've lost something they never valued: control over me. The silence after my reveal doesn't last long. It never does in this house. Mom's tears fall first, just as I expected. She presses her napkin against her cheeks, her voice trembling with well-practiced fragility. After everything we've sacrificed for you, Julianne, this is the thanks we get? Turning your back on family, hiding things from us like we're strangers? I inhale slowly, steadying myself. I know these tactics. They've worked on me before. Dad's voice follows, stern and deliberate. We worked overtime, scrimped and saved so you could go to college. Do you think your success came from nowhere? Do you really believe you did it all alone? The words sting, but I force myself to remember the numbers. $600 a semester. Just enough for books. The rest, I carried. I paid those tuition bills, I remind him softly. Every loan, every shift waiting tables. You contributed something, yes, but don't pretend it was everything. Sophie slams her hands down on the table, rattling the silverware. You've always been like this, keeping score, making lists, holding grudges. You act so high and mighty, but you've been selfish since day one. Her words whip through me like cold wind, but I catch the desperation hiding underneath. She's not used to me pushing back. You call it keeping score, I reply evenly. I call it remembering, because the moment I forget, you take more. Mom leans forward, eyes wet, voice cracking. Not everyone is as strong as you, sweetheart. Sophie needed more support. We just wanted to give her a chance. I almost laugh at the irony. Chance. She had 3 universities, countless handouts, birthday cards wrapped in bows. Meanwhile, I was stapling streamers in the kitchen while holding a Stanford scholarship letter no one celebrated. Dad jabs a finger toward me, his voice rising. This bitterness will poison you. Family is about sacrifice, about giving. And right now you're proving you don't know the first thing about loyalty. The chandelier above us trembles faintly from the force of his hand slamming the table. The old script is playing guilt, duty, sacrifice. They know their parts by heart, but this time I know mine too. I push back my chair slowly, the scrape of wood on hardwood louder than his thunder. My heart pounds, but my voice is calm. I know about sacrifice. I lived it. I sacrificed sleep, youth, and weekends to earn everything I own. I sacrificed silence every Sunday, swallowing my anger while Sophie took and you excused. And I've finally decided the price is too high. Sophie scoffs, but it cracks around the edges. So what now, Jules? You just cut us off? Pretend you don't need us? I meet her eyes, steady as stone. I've never pretended I didn't need you. The truth is, you never needed me. You just needed what was mine. The room goes still again, but this time the stillness feels different. Not victory, not yet, but the sound of a script unraveling, the old choreography faltering. For the first time, their words don't pierce. They bounce off, leaving me standing firm in the center of the storm. The room still vibrates with their accusations, selfish, bitter, disloyal, but instead of breaking me, the words hang in the air like smoke I've finally learned not to inhale. I lean forward, resting my palms against the table, and for once, I don't feel small under the chandelier's light. This isn't about a car, I say quietly, but firmly enough that they all turn toward me. It never was. It's about the pattern we've been stuck in my whole life. Sophie takes, you excuse, I sacrifice, and we pretend it's love. Mom stiffens, her pearls trembling against her throat. That's not fair. Fair? My laugh is sharp, hollow. When I got my Stanford scholarship, you barely looked up from Sophie's birthday balloons. When Dad brought home a car wrapped in a bow for her 16th, I was taping streamers in the kitchen. Do you remember what you gave me? A pat on the shoulder and a reminder to smile for guests. Dad's face darkens, but I don't let him speak. The words pour out, steady and unstoppable. In college, I worked 2 jobs to pay tuition while you funded Sophie's 3rd school before she dropped out. When she borrowed my clothes, my jewelry, even my apartment key, you called me uptight. And when she took my car, posted it online as if it was her gift from you, once again, you told me to share. Sophie huffs, crossing her arms. You're exaggerating. You make me sound like a thief. I meet her eyes, unflinching. You are. You've stolen opportunities, credit, things that didn't belong to you, and every time I let it happen because I was scared of being called ungrateful. That ends tonight. The silence that follows is different from the ones before. Heavy, yes, but tinged with something new. The shock of hearing the truth said aloud. Mom dabs her eyes. Julianne, you don't understand. No, I understand perfectly. I understand that you taught me generosity without boundaries, sacrifice without recognition, love without respect. And I also understand that if I keep playing along, this loop will never end. I straighten, my chair scraping softly against the floor as I rise. My heart pounds, but my body feels lighter than it has in years. So I'm cutting the loop. You can keep telling yourselves whatever story makes you feel better, but I'm done living it. Dad leans back, his authority faltering for the first time. Sophie bites her lip, her confidence slipping like sand through her fingers. I gather my folder, my purse, my keys, this time without rushing, without apology. Each movement is deliberate, final. At the doorway, I glance back once more. Love doesn't take without asking. Love respects. If you ever want to understand me, start there. Then I step out, the click of the door behind me sealing not just the night, but the entire cycle I've finally broken. 6 months later, the Denver skyline glows orange as the morning sun climbs higher. My office has changed since that night I walked away from Boulder. A new title on the door, Executive Vice President, and a heavier desk lined with photos of victories that belong solely to me. Deals closed, teams built, late nights turned into signed contracts, and in the company garage, the midnight blue sedan gleams with the Neurotech logo on its doors, no longer a vulnerable trophy, but a polished emblem of what I've fought for. Still, family ties don't vanish overnight. They shift, stretch, and test the new boundaries I've drawn. It begins with Mom. She calls one Friday evening, her tone softer than I remember. Julianne, maybe you and I could have dinner. Just the 2 of us. No negotiations, no pressure. I hesitate, memories of her pearl necklace twisting between her fingers flashing in my mind. But I hear something else in her voice. Uncertainty, even humility. All right, I say. Dinner, on neutral ground. At the restaurant, she fusses with the menu to avoid my eyes. Eventually, she sets it down, voice trembling. I might not have been fair to you. I thought I was protecting Sophie, but maybe I was only making her weaker. I sip my water, steady, acknowledging that is a start. But understanding boundaries means respecting them every day, not just tonight. Her eyes glisten, but she nods. It's not a confession, not an apology, but it's a crack in the wall. And I'll take it. Dad is slower to bend. At Christmas, the card arrives in his handwriting, not Mom's. 2 sentences only. We're proud of you. Don't forget us. For him, that's progress. And Sophie? Word drifts back through Clara and mutual friends. She's finally held a job longer than 90 days. Not a career yet, but a paycheck she earned on her own. I let the news settle without bitterness. Growth comes in uneven steps. One snowy evening, Clara joins me for coffee. Steam curls between us as she studies my face. You seem lighter, she says. I am, I answer honestly, because for the first time I know where I end and they begin. That line used to be blurry, now it's not. Later, during a company dinner, my assistant Sarah corners me, shoulders slumped. They're saying I'm not ready to present in Portland, but I built that proposal from scratch. Her frustration is raw, familiar. I see myself in her, the younger version who let others claim her work without protest. I rest a hand on her arm. Your achievements belong to you. Don't apologize for them. If you don't protect them, someone else will claim them. Her eyes brighten as if I've handed her permission she didn't know she needed. In that moment, I realize this boundary I've drawn isn't just for me. It's a legacy, a map for others who feel erased. When I drive home that night, Denver's lights flicker across the hood of the sedan. The scratch is gone, the paint flawless, but I know where it once was. I don't see it as a wound anymore. I see it as proof. Proof of what happens when I let others define my worth, and proof that I will never do it again. Family is still mine. But now it exists within the lines I draw. Love doesn't take without asking. Love respects. And for the first time, I feel both free and connected, because those two things are not opposites, they're boundaries. The Denver skyline gleams in spring sunlight, sharp against the blue of the Rockies. 6 months have passed since the night I laid the folder on my parents' dining table, and my life has reshaped itself in ways I couldn't have imagined. My office feels different now. Not just because the brass plate on the door reads Executive Vice President, Client Relations, but because I walk into it every morning with a steadiness that used to feel impossible. The shelves hold awards and framed photos, not of borrowed milestones, but of things I built with my own hands. The sedan, once a battlefield, now sits proudly in the company garage, its polished doors carrying the Neurotech logo across town for meetings. I see it less as mine and more as a symbol. Boundaries turned into power. That evening, I host dinner at my apartment. Crystal glasses clink, but this time they're ones I bought myself. Colleagues fill my living room, laughter spilling over plates of food I didn't cook to impress anyone, just to share. Clara squeezes my shoulder as she hands me another bottle of wine. Look at you, she says softly, watching the room. 6 months ago, you were fighting to breathe at that dining table. Now, you're running your own. I smile, the kind that settles deep in my chest. It feels lighter, I admit, like I've finally stepped into my own skin. Later, when the last guest leaves and the apartment quiets, I scroll through my phone. A text from Mom sits unread. Dinner again soon? Just you and me. Not an apology, but not manipulation either. A cautious reaching out. Dad's been quieter, but the Christmas card still rests in my desk drawer, proof of a shift I never thought possible. And Sophie? Through friends, I've heard she's kept her job for half a year. A record for her. She hasn't called, and I haven't asked her to. Some distances are necessary, at least for now. I step to the window, gazing down at the city streets glittering below. My reflection stares back, older, steadier, not harder, but clearer. The woman who once swallowed her voice for peace no longer lives here. This one knows her boundaries. This one writes her own story. As the clock ticks past midnight, I let the silence stretch, not heavy like before, but full of possibility. If there's one truth I've learned, it's this. Family can love you and still hurt you. They can claim it's sacrifice when it's control, call it loyalty when it's silence, and call it love when it's taking without asking. For years, I mistook giving without boundaries for strength. But strength isn't about how much you can endure, it's about knowing when to stop. Walking away that night wasn't just about a car, it was about breaking the loop. About teaching myself that love without respect isn't love worth keeping. And here's the miracle. When you stop letting people rewrite your story, you finally start living it. The hardest part isn't saying no, it's believing you deserve to. And you do. We all do. So if you've ever been told you're selfish for drawing a line, remember this. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors you choose when to open. If my journey resonates with you, let's keep sharing these stories. Hit like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment. Have you ever had to set a boundary that changed everything? Let's talk about it.